Good morning, everyone. Welcome to How to Digitally Transform Your Business During the Pandemic, our webinar for today, hosted by the City of Mississauga's Mississauga Business Enterprise Center. I would like to also point out that and welcome officially our guests speakers for today before we get started with the intro is the entrepreneurs from Shop 3D, Ken and Sarah. Welcome to the wave. We're privileged to have Ken and Sarah here today to share with us a bit about their business of 3D printing and their story on how they were able to leverage technology to pivot their company during this pandemic. They're also going to provide us with some insights, practical tips, and strategies on ways entrepreneurs and business leaders can digitally transform their business. I'd also like to say hi to Walter, who is my co-host today. Walter Garrison is our advanced manufacturing business integrator here at the City of Mississauga's Economic Development Office. And Walter will speak a little bit more to that a little later and introduce and talk a little bit more about Shop 3D. So welcome, everyone. So a little intro and background on our host for today is MBEC, the central source. That's what we are, better known as the Mississauga Business Enterprise Center, known as MBEC. And we are that central source here at the Economic Development Office for small business owners. And we are now working remotely to support you, our team. And I am the digital marketing consultant, Laura Dunkley. We also have Susan Lovelace, who is our business consultant. And we're available for support. You can phone in, you can have a one-on-one meeting with us to support your business needs. We also do webinars such as this for learning. We do entrepreneur programs such as the Starter Company Plus program, which is in progress right now. And we also have a summer company for the young people that we will be sharing out in the new year, and that's something to help our young people start a summer company. It's some pretty great programming. It's also some online resources. The only URL that you really have to remember is mississauga.ca/MBEC, and that will take you over to our microsite, which has an incredible amount of online resources. But if you don't find what you're looking for, feel free to contact us, and forums are there. And now I'd like to pass this over to Walter Garrison to say a few words about his role and some of the work that's being done in Mississauga in the area of advanced manufacturing, and then he'll introduce our speakers.
Great, thank you very much, Laura, and it's my pleasure to co-host this webinar with you. Hi everyone, I'm the Advanced Manufacturing Business Integrator for the City of Mississauga Economic Development Office, and I work directly with our manufacturers in Mississauga who are in a number of key sectors, including aerospace, automotive, food and beverage, clean technologies, medical devices, as well as specialty manufacturers. In previous roles, I've worked in manufacturing in a number of different positions, including operations and research and development, and have also delivered training at the college and university levels. If you are a Mississauga manufacturer, I can assist you with business-to-business connections. I can assist you with talent acquisition, expansion plans, and I can certainly help with issue resolution. We have also something very unique to our municipality, to the city, and that's an MS Teams platform just for our Mississauga manufacturing community to be able to meet with each other virtually, share best practices and solutions during this incredibly challenging time, and to provide access to opportunities and direct contacts within government funding agencies in real time. So if you are a Mississauga manufacturer, please feel free to reach out to me and learn more about the services that our Economic Development Office provides. And as a reminder, our services are free for your Mississauga business. I'd now like to introduce our presenters today, Shop 3D. So shop3d.ca is a place where Canadians can find desktop 3D printers, laser engravers, and vacuum formers for engineers, educators, and maker spaces. With 3D printing showrooms in Mississauga, Toronto, Vancouver, they are more than just a web store. Their services include one-on-one consultations with our applications engineers, and they provide after-purchase training and support. And now I'd like to introduce our guest speakers from Shop 3D. I'd like to introduce Kenneth, who's the co-founder and CEO, And Ken is a bootstrap entrepreneur focused on emerging desktop 3D printing technologies. He's a leader that takes small teams to big markets. Ken likes to bridge the gap between hobbies and professions, so he's either always working or always playing. Pretty envious. I'd also like to introduce Sarah Caracciolo, who's the marketing manager at shop3d.ca. So Sarah's involved with graphic design, web development, marketing, and she's a superheroine on the weekend. Sarah does it all. So her passion for helping small businesses grow is only superseded by her love of costuming. So one of the things I do want to say on a personal note is in the early stages of the pandemic in North America, Shop3D launched the COVIDstop.ca campaign, and they coordinated suppliers with 3D printing capabilities with requests for thousands of face shields from across Canada. And I think Ken and his team did a tremendous amount of work to coordinate the production and distribution of volunteer-driven PPE. And Shop3D provided hospitals and frontline healthcare workers with this PPE. So I want to thank them for their efforts on that front. And I'd now like to pass it over to Ken and Sarah for their presentation.
First off, questions. You guys can send questions whenever you want into the chat. If they're related, we'll try to address them while we're talking. Otherwise, we'll just address them all at the end. But you don't have to keep them hidden. You can just send them as you go so you don't forget them. What we're talking about today, we're going to talk about a little bit about who we are and what we do with 3D printing. We're going to talk about how we changed when COVID attacked, and then how this can apply to you, and some ideas about how to scale your business, which is something that we're also going through. So we have some experience there. So, Walter gave a great introduction about who we are. So why not just talk about 3D printing and basically what it can do for businesses?
Sounds good. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you both to Laura and Walter for the introduction. That was a fantastic introduction and really encapsulates kind of what we do and some of the cultural inheritance of Shop3D. So we're very happy here today to talk to you about small business, about transitioning, about digital transformation. These are all topics that are near and dear to our hearts, something that we're absolutely passionate about. But first, we should talk a little bit about 3D printing in general, because for some of you out there, you are not too familiar with 3D printing. And with that, we'll give you the quickest rundown ever of what 3D printing is. Essentially, it's the same process as a 2D printer. So what you do is when you input a 2D file to a printer, it'll print out on a sheet of paper a 2D object. If you put a 3D file into a 3D printer, you will get a three-dimensional object. So we do have one of our Ultimakers here with us behind us. And and this is just a three-dimensional shape that's been 3D printed, and you're going to say, well, how does it do this? And what it does is it takes a three-dimensional shape, it slices into 2D layers, and for each layer, it's going to print that layer 1, 2, 3 at a time until it makes 1,000 layers, and then finally you have an object like this. And of course, you can get into more complex shapes. This is simply the most easy way for us to do this, and I think Sarah also has some samples that she'll put on the screen for you. So those are just different things that you can print. Some of them are trinkets and toys, and some of them could be very useful manufacturing jigs and fixtures that you can use for prototyping or for use in your manufacturing facility. Now, the printers that we have right now are all polymer-based printers, with the exception of a few. But essentially, polymer is plastic, and plastics have developed a long way in the past, 100 years. And now when we're printing these thermoplastics, they are extremely strong materials. They are materials, some of them are food grade, some of them are biocompatible. There's just a lot of functionality in plastic materials right now. And this is something that you can do in your 3D printer. As you can see, we're at the point of 3D printing where it is starting to become a little bit more miniaturized. So this is a desktop printer. It can sit on our desk. It can sit on the desk of an engineer, and it will be able to produce parts. It's not very loud. And at a very minimal cost. So something like this would probably only cost about $2 or less in materials. So we're talking about prototyping, at scale for a fraction of the cost of what we used to do with injection molding. Of course, there are some limitations to 3D printers, but we won't go through all of those today. But that is a quick rundown of what 3D printing is.
So how can it be used to transform business? Let's say for manufacturing and big business, we're talking about printing parts on demand, either end-use parts or prototyping, so you can go through different iterations of your project at home or in the office instead of sending out to another company to actually produce the parts for you. And you can reduce the time because you're no longer shipping from here to there or shipping between plants. You can just do it in your workspace.
Exactly. And, now with COVID and everybody working from different places at home, at the office, and, across the globe, if you have different offices, it is more and more easy to transfer files and digital data over. So an engineer could design something in Seattle, they could send a file over to a bunch of prototyping places or the design team or R&D team, and they can print it locally. They no longer have to ship this object back and forth. They can just email files over, and then you can print them on site. So that is one way where it kind of bridges the gap between people being in different places and being compartmentalized.
Yeah, and then for small business, a lot of businesses are starting with a 3D printer where they're creating accessories, they're creating props, they're creating toys, they're prototyping their ideas for inventions, or we even have a couple of people making cookies who are creating cookie cutters or laser engraving on cookies and other stuff like that. So it really opens the door for a lot of people to start businesses and bring that manufacturing cost down because they don't have to outsource it to somewhere. They don't have to buy 1,000 minimum. They can just get one and test it out.
Yeah, and we're talking about technology that's now being available relatively cheaply, to a whole range of business levels. You no longer have to be spending over $200,000 for a 3D printer. You can get something that's $5,000 and it'll produce parts on demand. And, one of the best use cases for small businesses in using technology like this is, one, you can compete with larger manufacturers, but also at the same time, you're able to do so much more through customization. By customizing your digital file, you're able to create custom prototypes, custom objects where it wasn't available before. So you don't have to retool just to do something custom. And customization is really a big part of 3D printing because now the printer will print exactly what you send it. So there is actually no cost to customization other than the design time you put in to customize to a particular object that you're printing.
And also even on a hobby level, some people have the machines to make stuff around the house, solving little issues, or as I said, creating toys, or just experimenting with the technology. So there's a lot of opportunities there. We mainly deal with professionals here just because that's what these machines are aimed at. But it's a really neat technology that opens a lot of doors for a lot of people.
Exactly. And we do cater to mostly professionals because most of the professionals that we are working with are small businesses or medium-sized businesses, and they're looking to recoup an ROI with the printer. And of course, that's certainly important from a business standpoint to be able to kind of figure out the business plan, how to leverage the 3D printer to leverage your business to take it to a higher level. So that is one thing that we're focused on helping professionals do.
Now, we could talk about 3D printing all day. That's what we do. We live it, we eat it. Yes. But today we're talking about marketing. So if you do have any other questions about 3D printing, you can throw them in the chat and we'll address them at the end. And if you have a lot of questions, we might come back and do a 3D printing focused presentation. So yeah, ask away. In the meantime, we're gonna get started, and I'm just gonna introduce a little bit, it's probably basic marketing, so some people will already know this, but I'm gonna talk about SWOT. A SWOT analysis is a really great way for really anything. This is probably the single most useful thing I know whether it's making a business decision, a marketing decision, thinking about your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats to your business is always really important. And I hope you keep this in mind as we talk, and we'll keep it in mind to kind of talk about our decisions and how we've kind of approached our different challenges. So pre-COVID, we were basically really traditional strategy. Our strength was that we had the in-store showroom. We were also online. We did a lot of events. We did outreach, education, because people didn't know when Ken first started, like people didn't really know what 3D printing was.
No one did.
So a big step was doing outreach, teaching people what this was, and making connections that way. And then in-person consultations, having people actually come into our showroom and talk to us and ask questions. Then COVID happened, and you can't really have people come in store, shopping online. They can't come in and check things out before they buy. Events ended, and in-person consultations, like we can't have people come in store. That's a really big challenge, and that is a threat to our business, basically. So how we changed is looking at our strengths, and those strengths are, well, we already were online. So while everyone else is playing catch up, trying to get their online stores working, we already had the framework. It was just improving it. We have strong marketing backgrounds. Ken has, go off, Ken.
Yeah, I do come from a marketing background. I come from a marketing background where not only did I do a lot of digital marketing, but I also worked specifically in production as well, producing commercials and such. So I am very aware of kind of how visual and storytelling affects customers' perceptions of businesses and so forth. And that's really something that we put to the forefront when we do have our business, is to kind of project an image of what is accurate to us, and also an image of what we think, a 3D printing business should look like. Because when we did start 5 years ago, there were no 3D printing stores, and there certainly were no 3D printing showrooms that would show off kind of what we would want it to be, which is almost like an art gallery. And I think, Sarah, you can you can show them what our current showrooms look like. So on the left, we have our Mississauga showroom. It doesn't show all of it, but it's a large showroom, and we probably have maybe 15 different types of printers here with hundreds of different parts that we printed. And everybody who comes in will be able to find some part that fits what they're doing and be able to see, okay, I understand what the texture is like. I understand what some of the limitations are. And in Vancouver, we have a little bit of more of an art gallery type approach, and that's the one on the right. And Jackie runs that showroom. And over there, there's a little bit more dedication to kind of the artistry of 3D printing, things that you can print with art. As you can see, there are some frames on the wall with 3D printed parts in it. It's not very big, so you can't see the details in it, but it is very focused on kind of art and sculptural pieces of 3D printing. And that's kind of the two tiers of our showroom. One is a little bit more geared towards manufacturing, and the other is a little bit more geared towards artistry.
Mm-hmm. And then my strong marketing background, I've done websites for small businesses. I had my own company for a while. I've worked at some major places for some major brands. And so I'm bringing that all in to basically our web presence. And we recently reinvigorated our website, which ended up being really beneficial because we were ready for when this happened. We have some great customer and partner relationships that we've been that we can tap into, and as I said, we've already planned to push digital. So really, this would just, how do we take what we've been doing and do it more? And market leader. I mean, we have high search rankings. That's something we tried for. We've won awards for sales for some of our brands, and people copy us.
Yes, so that's flattering to us, and yeah, I'll speak a little bit more to that in terms of kind of where we sit on the market. We are certainly not one of the largest 3D printing shops in Canada. We're definitely one of the earlier ones, but we're definitely not as well funded as some of our competitors, and we see that as completely fine. You know, when we talk about strengths and weaknesses, you have to understand and accept, you know, kind of the strengths and weaknesses that you have and really leverage on the strengths and not worry so much about the weaknesses. Be cognizant of it, but don't let that hold you back. But, you know, that being said, with Sarah's direction on marketing, even though we are not the largest 3D printing shop, in terms of our presence on the web, in terms of our presence with our customers, I do think that we are certainly one of the leaders in the industry. We do many things, which we will get into more of, that is market leading, haven't been done in the market before, and certainly have been done in the 3D printing world before as well. So we're leading the way because we want to be creative. We want to keep pushing, and you know, this is just inherently part of who we are.
One of our biggest benefits to having such a marketing background between the two of us is that we can do stuff in-house that other companies would have to outsource. So we can constantly be in control of the image we're putting out, the experiences we're creating, and it's us. And we're keeping that in line throughout all of our branding, all of our videos, everything that we do. And so that's one of our strengths that really helps us stand out against a bigger company that doesn't have as much control over their image because they have partially in-house, partially outsourced, partially third party, or they don't have a marketing team, especially if they're smaller. They might not have the marketing team or the ideas that we do. So we leverage that a lot. So how do we change? Is we took our showroom experience and we made it virtual. So Ken leveraged his technology video background, and we said, people can't come into the store anymore. That's a weakness for us. So the opportunity is, let's open that up and make it so that people can get the same experience. We can take them through all our product lines, give them the same question and answer time that they would normally get, and do it virtually. Because COVID, everyone's used to doing things virtually now. They expect to do it virtually now. And really, it became an advantage for us because now we can reach across Canada. You don't have to drive to our Mississauga showroom from Quebec. You can just dial it in and visit us online and actually get the full same experience.
Yeah, and I'll speak more to this. You know, when we did have that big switch over, of course, it was a shock to everybody. But for us, we kind of took it in stride. And, you know, leveraging our strengths, as Sarah said, of production and technology, we were always going to head in a direction that was similar to this, but just not at the speed at which we wanted to do it. So, and that's why we wanted to do a virtual showroom. So it's not as easy. So it's not as simple. It is simple, but what we're doing is we're doing it in a way where you can actually see our entire showroom. So in terms of our showroom in Mississauga, what we did was we had a kind of a rolling computer desk. And in that desk, we were able to mount cameras, a laptop, and have Bluetooth technology with headsets, and we were able to have a salesperson walk you through the showroom, get close to the printers. If you don't like what you see there, or if you want to see something else, we're able to take that whole stand and move you to another printer. So it's as if you had the point of view of actually being in the showroom with us. And that's really the whole experience of our showroom. I would say the only thing that you will not have now is kind of the visceral feel of touching prints by hand, but there are some sacrifices there. So, but there are no compromises in terms of, you know, communicating directly with one of our sales reps here in our showroom, because it's simply a matter of logging on. And, you know, the benefit is now you can have multiple people in the company log on from different locations. So you can have, you know, your manager at home, working from home, who can log in as well and see the presentation. And we can prepare all of these things for you, as well as working on the computer. You would be able to pull up the screen of, you know, slicing your prints and how the interface of that works as well. So That is one thing that we leveraged on in terms of our showroom. And essentially what we did was we thought, hey, we have this giant showroom that's no longer really being used for the intended purpose. What can we do with it? And, one way was to do the virtual showroom. And then the other way was also kind of rejigging our showroom a little bit and bringing in and building a small set where we can do presentations on a regular basis. And I mean, that's different than where we are now.
Well, talking about that, so the other thing that we really changed was doing webinars, live launches, podcasts. We're trying out a lot of different things digitally to see what people want. But we also, because we have the space now, we have this little studio set up, nice little backdrop. We're able to experiment these things in a very professional way and actually test the waters there.
Yes. So, leveraging kind of what we know and come from, we were able to make a set, a production environment where it would be extremely professional looking right from the get-go. I mean, sometimes if you're not in the industry, it takes a while for you to find your groove, to figure out, what looks good, where should the lights be, what camera should I use, and so forth. We
will be talking about some low budget solutions near the end of this.
Right.
So don't stress if you're like, okay, I can't do a studio. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about leveraging, the tools that we have, and a lot of the time, it doesn't really take that much. It just takes a little bit of know-how and experience. But what we did was we were able to kind of present a very professional image right away. And then we were kind of figuring out, and testing the waters in terms of mostly content. Is a webinar the right format for us? Is a live launch the right format for us? Is streaming the right content for us? And I think that's what we kind of developed on our own and kind of pushed the industry forward when we had our live launches. But I might be getting ahead of ourselves, so I'll turn it back to you so you can.
Well, for both things, really, it's seeing what the results have been. So the results for the virtual tour, it's working really well for us, and we're reaching people in, let's say, Alberta, Saskatchewan, people we wouldn't normally be able to give this experience to. So it's something that after testing, we're going to keep around for sure. It's easy for us to implement, and it reaches a bigger audience. And why didn't we think of it sooner, And then for the events, the webinars and stuff, we're really, we're getting really good response on different things, and we're still trying out a lot of different things. But we're going to be working toward a good YouTube channel, which is going to represent our brand online. So we saw we saw the threat, which was COVID, and changing how we did business. And we saw the opportunity where we can bring in our skills of web and video and really create something unique and special that is still to the Shop 3D brand. And we turned it into our strength. Now we have these virtual showroom visits. We have webinars, podcasts. We can do webinars for City of Mississauga in our studio space. So it really opened the doors. Another thing that is our strength is our customers. So I touched on this before. I mentioned the customers are one of our strengths, and we have really good relationships for them or with them. And now we can leverage that in our content creation and really do something that supports them and supports us. We're working with one of our customers, Ozzy, as a Formlabs ambassador. And what he's going to do is be representing Shop 3D and Formlabs, one of our major brands, and basically talk about how he's using them. And we're going to be creating a bunch of content with that. And he gets some benefits, which is great. But we're going to be creating some webinars that talks about how he's using 3D printing to do his business. We're going to be talking with him and doing a little video once we can actually go in and film. And really leveraging his story as part of our success, because we were part of his success.
Exactly. So, at this time, it's super important to think about partnerships and mutually beneficial situations that you can leverage in order to kind of tell a story, right? Because now with people having so much less communication overall, there's much less face-to-face meetings. It is important for us to stay in touch with everybody and to see how everybody's doing, what they need, what are some of the challenges that they're hitting, for this period. And we're able to also solve those issues or provide some suggestions and solutions. And, with our customers, not only are we able to tell their stories, but their stories is a success story for us as well, because they're leveraging the technology to a good, useful place for them. So it is super important to leverage the contacts that you have. And of course, it's mutually beneficial for both parties because they may not have that exposure in reaching the same target audience as well. So
I think when we got our preliminary signups for this event, some people were saying they're in arts and entertainment, and some people are just starting businesses. So you might be thinking about influencers. You might be thinking about reaching people outside of your network and connecting with them. And while that can be great for building relationships, also think about who your existing customers are, because those people already buy from you. They clearly love your product, and you already have that start of a relationship. So you can actually build that relationship and help them grow by using your platform, and they can help you grow by using their platform. If there's an opportunity there, really you want to connect with your customers, and having great customer relationships really makes a difference.
exactly.
You want your customers to fight for you and actually like you, and stick around and not run off to someone else because someone else is offering them
Exactly.
candy.
And I want to get into a little bit of a tangent because we're talking about customers. Some of you out there might be thinking, well, it sounds like you guys have some great customers.
And we really do.
And we do. How did you find these customers? And I think one of the important things to recognize as a small business is that what you project out and what you attract, are very synonymous with each other. So if you want to put a good face forward, if you want to be very helpful, if you want good customers, you'll be able to find them if you are very helpful to them. So what you put out is what you get back. And that's certainly true for business. And, we are very extremely helpful to all of our customers. And in return, they appreciate the help that we've done, and they're much more willing to share, because we also know that, not every customer is willing to share what they're doing because it could be a competitive advantage for someone else. But I think
NDAs.
exactly. But when you have good customers that have worked with you, when you've really been able to help them solve a problem and really dedicate a solution and service and help to them, they're much more willing to share. They're more willing to leave a review for you. But there's nothing better than a customer testimonial of not necessarily your business, but of a product that you represent. It's also important to the manufacturers that you represent that you project a good light on their products as well. So that's something very important to keep in mind as a small business. And the reason why I keep emphasizing small business is because I generally believe, as a small business owner, that small businesses have an advantage in really connecting with their customers on a deeper level. We're able to spend more time. We're able to think and react a lot quicker to groups of customers. And that's something that I'm sure we'll talk to in terms of data analytics when we receive that.
Yeah. So one of the other things we've changed is more focus on lead generation. So before, with the events, we were connecting with people as they were at events, and it was very targeted. We go to like a manufacturing show. We know we're interacting with manufacturers, and they come to us and talk to us. But without the events this year, we kind of miss that opportunity to run into people. So with all of our content, our webinars, we try to collect leads in some way, and not always in the traditional way. So the traditional way is you get people to sign up for a webinar, and then you have their contact information that you can reach out to them later. But what we really want to focus on is not necessarily number of leads, but having good conversations with good people. So people who are actually interested in 3D printing will reach out to us. And what we want to do is offer them something that is worth talking to us about. So we might offer design services, and that starts a whole conversation. Or we offer bridge printing, like 3D printing for them before they're willing to buy a printer. They might just be, testing the waters, and we can really, that's what our application engineers do, is we're going to find your problem, help you solve that problem, and teach you along the way. And as Ken was saying, this is kind of the strength of the small business, is we can have that sort of relationship, and it ties to not the individual person, but Shop 3D as a whole. Whereas with a very large business, who are you dealing with? Are they going to be there in 2 weeks? You really don't know. So that's the advantage that we kind of offer.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here as well. I always compare small businesses with both medium-sized and large businesses, mainly larger businesses. And the reason why I do that is because, when we talk about what you can leverage and what things change, even though COVID has a negative effect generally on business in general, those who are able to adapt, who are willing to change, will be able to find ways to survive and thrive. And when we talk about events, realistically, if we think about how large events, manufacturing events are run, what happens is, companies spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get booth space, and they're able to showcase to a very qualified group of individuals coming to the show. And you know what? That really caters to larger businesses with much bigger budgets. So as a small business, in general, in those events, you would be outgunned in a lot of ways. Your booth is going to be half or a quarter of the size of what some of your larger competitors or larger alternatives, solution alternatives. Exactly. You just don't have the resources to do that. And then, you'd have to recognize that as a small business, that you are going to be outgunned in those events. So when that changed, that was actually a welcome change for us, because we were spending a tremendous amount of money, trying to spend a tremendous amount of money to try to match that. And realistically, as small businesses, you shouldn't look at competing with larger business. You should be looking at outmaneuvering them in a way that's less resource intensive than what they can do. So that's why leveraging this whole showroom experience and now kind of creating a YouTube channel and creating an audience is kind of the virtual way of doing that. And what COVID did was it actually kind of forced people to accept that type of media consumption as well, because you were very used to going to a show and seeing everything. But now with that not available, what is the alternative? And one of the alternatives is to kind of look for media online. And that's why we really jumped on that as quickly as possible and produced good media that was very palatable to a lot of people out there. And we also tailored that particular content to our clientele. And one of the things that we did was to say, hey, if we do create a video, and we know who it's for, how can we address that video in a way that it speaks to those people? So you really want to, have that niche of who you want to target in mind and produce content that will serve that niche best.
I think really we go for what are people needing right now and how can we provide that. When a new product launches, we've been doing these live launch videos where we open the box, we talk about all the features, and we kind of give the initial experience with the printer. And from our point of view and our perspective and our experience with it live, which is great because it's not faked, it's just what it is.
Exactly.
And that's what people want. We find we have really good response from people who have already pre-ordered and just want that little bit of information they want to know before they open their box, or customers who aren't 100% sure and just need that little bit of information to know, is it worth it? What am I getting?
Yeah, and just to speak more on the live launch, it is something that I guess we coined here when we do a live launch. We kind of take that for granted. I mean, everybody knows what a live launch is, but what we did was we took the traditional format of what a webinar would be, and we kind of formatted it in a way that a TV production studio would do almost a live show, a show that's streamed. So what we did was we added a bunch of elements to make it a lot more exciting. First of all, it was live. You could interact with us during the live launch. Second of all, it was partially scripted. So we actually have a program of what would happen, and we would take it. So for example, someone could be here, and then they would be able to, they could talk about the launch of a new printer. So for example, if this printer was a brand new printer that we launched, does it do it justice just to be like, hey, here are the specs, and on a webinar spreadsheet? No, it's way more exciting than that. It's exciting because we can do this, we can show it live, we can see it work, we can interact with it.
Open the doors, press the buttons,
Exactly. And then what we would usually do also is bring in an applications engineer. So in our last live launch, we did it with one of our partners, CraftBot. We actually brought in our Vancouver store. So Jackie over at our Vancouver store was able to join us on the live launch as well and say, okay, from Vancouver, we are now talking about the CraftBot, Plus Pro, and here are some features, and this is what our Vancouver customers are talking about it. So we're really integrating a lot of different elements, and it is slightly technical, but what that allows us to do is it lets a small business like us produce a live, exciting launch for everybody out there. It can be streamed, it can be stored and archived for later as content. But we're also bringing in correspondence from Vancouver, or one of our customers wants to leave a testimonial. So this is certainly something that's, we are pushing ahead with and kind of making it way better than what we normally would have if we didn't have the opportunity to have more eyes on our content.
And the greatest thing about that is we can keep using that content going forward. So the live launch can become a social media post. It can go on the product page as information. And even the questions that are asked during the event, we can see what people actually want to know and do blog posts on that, do other videos on that, and really answer the questions people have to ask. What about sales? How has sales kind of changed? You can't go and shake someone's hand anymore. So
Exactly.
how are you tackling that?
Yeah, so I'm going to bring back the whole small business, large business comparison here, because, as we know, sales is principal directive and driving force of most organizations. As a small business, in general, you're going to be, again, outgunned by your larger competitors. And to stay competitive, your salespeople, your sales staff, your sales strategy really has to be refined to make use of all those resources that you have. Now, pre-COVID, of course, we were also outgunned. We have less sales staff, less direct sales staff than our competitors. But that was okay. It worked for us. When COVID hit and you can no longer go out, shake people's hands, go visit their offices, that actually, changed the dynamics of how sales worked in the industry, because everybody instantly accepted that it was no longer the way that it was going to happen. So they were going to be open to communicating and doing things in a different way. Because we actually had less sales staff, we were actually able to leverage technology a little bit better. All of our sales staff are very familiar with technology, with Zoom, with using cameras, with doing virtual tours and things like that. So they didn't have to change.
Yeah.
Now all they were seeing is that our digital strategy started picking up. We were able to get more leads with the same amount of effort. Of course, we put more effort, but yeah. Even if we did not change our digital strategy, we would naturally get more leads during this period because there was a drive to go online, to find more content online. And then after they find content, you are going to contact the people who are making that content, because those people who are making the content are usually the experts in the industry. So we were starting to get more leads based on having our digital strategy of providing useful content to people first. And then them coming to us afterward with something more specific that is unique to them, that they would like us to kind of comment or solve their problems on. So all of our sales staff became more busy as a result of this. And then, by leveraging technology even more, we were able to kind of drive sales a little bit higher. And, we don't have the largest sales staff team in the world, and that's perfectly fine, because what happens is having a smaller sales staff allows more of each person to kind of net more per person. So it's not always numbers of people that increase their sales. Each person could be more productive just because they have more tools and they have a better avenue to which to approach the customers. Yeah. And then once customers saw what it was like to do a virtual tour, what it was like to communicate with us, through email, and it was super fast and easy, and send files to us to view and sample, and we would send back files and digital files and so forth. It became the seamless process where people were like, wow, why didn't we do this before? Like the handshake almost was a little bit slow compared to what we could accomplish, in a couple days virtually. So
yeah. And really that brings it back to what we said with lead generation is starting conversations, good conversations with people who are interested and making sure that, you're meeting their needs and they have a reason to come to you and then growing that relationship from there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to talk about is our COVID Stop project, which Walter introduced earlier. So when the pandemic hit, really, there's kind of a feeling of powerlessness. We saw that there was a shortage of masks, there was a shortage of face shields, there was a shortage of gloves, everything. And it was really, we didn't know what would happen with our business at the time. So we were like, well, what do we do? And the answer came in the form of helping create PPE.
Yeah, and this inspiration really came to us by listening to our customers. What we noticed was when it first happened was when the shortage came, everybody wanted to help and everybody wanted to participate in help. But all of our customers had small pieces of the puzzle. Oh, I have a 3D printer. What can I do? I have some material to donate. What do I do? I have a design, but I don't know who to submit it to or what would work.
And no one had like a place to send anything to.
Exactly. And logistics was just all over the place. People would say, okay, who needs it? What do they need? It was just an extremely confusing time for everybody, but everybody had the right and well intentions set in their minds. And what we did was we looked at that and we said, hey, you know what? We are actually a hub of knowledge for all of our customers and all of these people who want to help. It's time for us to organize ourselves and help organize some of our customers and volunteers into something useful. And I think that's where the COVIDstop.ca initiative really came from. Was primarily it was a logistical support group where we were able to connect people who wanted to donate material, people who wanted to print with us, and then whoever needed it, we provided a way for them to easily order PPE off our website because we already have an e-commerce website. We already have a platform. So that's something that's, we focused on. We made it easy for people to order PPE that was in an emergency. And we also connected people who were supplying materials and also 3D printed parts. And the initiative, in a nutshell, is that we provided a design, which is designed by one of our applications engineers here, Felix, who we were able to standardize and send to all of the volunteers who had 3D printers. They would be able to print these frames and we would be able to assemble them, coordinate the logistics, and send back in bulk to people who needed them and who needed to order them. And in order to order them, it was an extremely simple process. They just go to the COVIDstop.ca site, click order. It was a free order. We would verify that they are a healthcare institution or someone who is in need, prioritize them, and then be able to send out PPE. And it was all done through our team here and also tons of volunteers who helped with this process as well. And I also want to mention that the city of Mississauga with their printers also joined in as well. It was the library group. They also joined into the initiative as well.
And we were supplying hospitals all across Canada, really.
Exactly.
And as well as other medical centers and dentists and, what are they? No, not PAs.
Which ones?
The assistants at nursing homes.
Oh, RNs? I don't know.
Okay. Well, we're sending them to nursing homes as well and really branching out to a lot of different groups. And we also collaborated with some other groups across Canada. We weren't the only ones to create face shields, and we tried to connect and support as much as we could so that really it was a coordinated effort.
Exactly. And it wasn't about us at all. We wanted to do this to help. And so that's why we did have a leaderboard on our site that shows who donated the most materials and who donated the most PPE, just to recognize that it is really their efforts that are going to this. We're just kind of in the middle as a hub to coordinate logistics for them as well.
And talking about the SWOT analysis, our strength was we had the logistics set up, we had the connections. Our weakness was we couldn't manufacture, we don't have a full print farm. We couldn't manufacture thousands of pieces a day, and there was demand for that much. So the opportunity was to connect our customers and ourselves
And crowdsource their
crowdsource
help, yeah.
really create this program and against the threat, which was COVID shortages.
Yeah.
And it all came together. It worked really well. Like, we did send out thousands of face shields.
Yes.
We built our relationships with our customers and some new people that hadn't heard of us before, but they heard about the project and got involved. And we had tons of people asking how they could volunteer in other ways as well.
Yeah.
So in the end, even though the goal was just to be helpful, it did end up supporting us in ways we didn't expect.
Exactly. And, we can't discount the morale of everybody involved. It's one thing to have COVID happen and then kind of feel helpless, but then when you contribute to something, contribute to a cause, and our team here was working extremely hard, and it was a stressful time for everybody, putting in that extra time, extra effort to just print, build the PPE. There was an assembly aspect to it as well, and of course a monetary aspect to fund a lot of the materials, but it was a stressful time. But everybody came together. Everybody knows that they're supported by all of the volunteers out there. It was a really good exercise for everybody to be able to participate in. And thankfully now we're no longer in a situation we're in such dire need of PPE.
We were able to just kind of send our last batches and take a step back, and now I don't think there's a need for us again.
Yeah,
which is
and
great.
in terms of our mandate for COVID stop, we knew we would stop at some point because it couldn't go on forever.
Yeah.
But during the time that we were doing COVID stop, we did connect with a lot of manufacturers. And because we are a prototyping hub and a knowledge hub for people who prototype, we started working closely with those manufacturers to prototype their own retooling. And that's something that they needed help with. It was they had the ability and the manufacturing facility to produce thousands, millions of PPE, and we were able to help them with our laser cutters, with our 3D printers to help prototype tools that they can rejig and retool to make the PPE. And we knew that that was the actual final long-term solution, was that the manufacturers would able to make not only a business case, but also the quantity that we require locally made, in Canada.
And also just interesting is the Mississauga Hospital's Credit Valley, like, they have their own print farm now running to create face shields that they're still using at the hospital. So they've kind of taken over manufacturing themselves using this technology, which is amazing.
Yeah, and that's something to be spoken of just about 3D printing. We're talking a lot about manufacturing, but even just having, the flexibility of one of these systems. And it's really about your mentality of thinking about, hey, what can I do and what can I achieve with this little tool? It goes a long way if you're creative.
Yeah. So how does all this talk apply to you and your business? First off, I say identify your strength and use them. For example, we identified our logistical strength in COVID Stop, and we used it to create this big program. But even with our video, we identified that, yeah, we have a strong marketing side. Let's use that to our advantage. And for you guys, if you have a small business, find your niche, find what your strength is, and try to grow that into a key part of your business.
Exactly.
Tell your story.
Okay. Tell my story. Okay, so
tell your story.
Yeah, so shop3d.ca started 5 years ago. So we just had our 5-year anniversary recently. And we started really, really small. We started at a time when 3D printing and these printers were not as sleek as this. It was much more of a ad hoc solution. So we really started at a time when 3D printing was just starting to bloom in the industry. And we took a risk. Well, actually, at the time, I was shooting commercials for 3D printing companies. and people there started asking me during the commercials, and people who we knew were like, wow, that's a great commercial. We're going to get one. And there was no place in Canada to get one at the time. So we decided that we would bring them in, import them, and become one of the first resellers here. So we're actually the first reseller for Ultimaker. We're first reseller for Formlabs, two of the most well-known brands now. And back then they were not well known, and no one wanted to import them in, and we kind of took that risk. So to sum it up, it's a lot about timing. And I think Sarah has here a picture of our first office in Brampton. It was just a tiny office. We only had 3 demo printers. And of course, our dog Haley there back in the day. And that was only 5 years ago. I mean, it seemed like it's been a long time, and we've grown significantly since then, and we've learned a lot significantly since then. But the one takeaway, and I know that there's some of you here who are thinking about starting businesses, is to think about timing and think about the need in the market and really go for it. I mean, back when we started, I had never been in a warehouse in my entire life. And now we have 2 logistical warehouses. And I also didn't know what a reseller for 3D printing was supposed to be. And that actually, it was a weakness in SWOT analysis, but it became our strength because we didn't have any preconceived notions of what a 3D printing reseller had to be like. So we were able to kind of formulate our own business plan and our own strategy 3D printing reseller, and that's when we came with that. So, it's been a long journey. It's due to one, good timing, just going for it and trying to do the best that you can, and being really helpful to the customers that you have. The first customers that we had when we had the smaller place, I mean, our website did not look this flashy. There was a lot of, not professional things about what we did back then, but because we were so sincere and we worked dedicatedly, a lot of those customers are still our customers today, and they have grown with us. So they used to have 1 printer, and now they have, 15 printers that they're using as a fleet to create parts for them. So it's really about growing with your customers, having that long-term connection with them, and think long-term, because that's where if you think long-term and you believe in long-term, that's where it'll take you.
And yeah, so tying into the telling your story aspect is you should tell your story of your brand. We include our customers on our website when we can. We tie them into our socials when we can. We talk about how we're experts and our history with 3D printing. One of the reasons people should trust Shop 3D is because we were one of the first in Canada. Like, we've been around. This is desktop level technology of 3D printing has only been around for 6 years.
6, 7 years, yeah.
7 years. And Shop 3D's been around for 5 of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why trust someone new over someone with tons of experience who's worked from the very beginning? And we even showcased some of our older printers in the showroom just to talk about, like, we were here from the beginning.
Yeah. And, history has a lot to do with it, but also, the evolution of it. In 5 years, we've seen these printers go from being just a laser cut plywood box to something that's sleek, plug and play, you plug it in, it's going to start printing for you. So the technology of these printers, and in most technological industries, does move extremely fast. And you'd have to be able to adapt with it and adapt to the new players that will come into the industry, but kind of stay true to what you do best, and your core competencies, your strengths, and being able to leverage that.
And then planning, experimenting, and building on those results. Don't be afraid to take on new challenges, but put a little bit of planning behind it. See what's working, what's not working, and adjust as you go. Everything, we try so many new things constantly. Some more planned than others.
Yeah, I'll say, a huge source of our inspiration in terms of trying, experimenting, and doing all this is our own staff. Yeah. Sarah and all of the staff here are allowed to be extremely creative in what they do because, as I mentioned to Walter, we both work and play all the time. Having that playful element inside your organization will help unleash creativity, and creativity is what you need to develop new ideas and find new ways to communicate. And a lot of it is when we get a new printer, we're all excited. We're all playing with it. We're all seeing what it can do. Everybody's got a project in mind that they want to do on it. And it doesn't have to be work related because everything will teach you about what you need to know. Someone will eventually say, hey, can I print 3D print on textiles? I got that question last week and we did it.
Yeah.
You know, it was something that Sarah wanted to try for her costumes, and I got that question last week, and I was able to answer a definitive yes, no, maybe, because we tried it ourselves. So your staff also becomes a huge source of inspiration and a huge resource for you. And just let them be creative, let them, you know, let them learn, and have everybody be passionate about what we're doing, because yes, it's work, but we're in an environment where it's cool. We got 3D printers, we've got tons of tech, we've got cameras. We can do pretty much whatever we want. You know, it's just a matter of kind of focusing that and saying, you know what, this will also be useful to our customers, and here's how we can package that up and provide that for them as value.
And really, once you played, you can see what works and build on that,
Exactly.
which is you're always moving forward. And then spending the time and effort to make it work properly. So sometimes you might have an idea, but you don't fully see it through, and it's not going to go anywhere unless you put the time and effort in to actually test it out. So if you have an idea and you actually believe in it, really dive into it. You don't have to throw all your budget at it. You don't have to throw all your time, but put enough in that you can actually see it succeed or fail properly.
Yes, and we do a lot of experimentation here, so sometimes it feels like we don't follow through with everything, but we're really trying to, that's the biggest challenge of a small business, is to see what you should be putting your time and money on, that is most worth it to you, and also the most useful to your company, and also the most fun to you, because you want to do the most fun things to you every day. And if that is able to help the organization, if that is able to provide value for your customers, then you are playing while making money.
So we're coming up close to our time. So we'll just end it with a quick how to scale, and we'll talk about growing pains, as that's what we're going through right now. For example, the last year we changed offices. We opened a second showroom in Vancouver, and we moved from Brampton to Mississauga.
Yes.
And then we've had to struggle with a changing identity. As our tech improves, we improve, we have to continually become more.
Yes.
And lastly, it's the staffing challenges. So let's start with changing offices. What was the biggest challenges there?
I mean, huge, challenges in changing offices. We usually don't think about this, but as you grow, space is going to become a huge limiting factor. It depends on the business you're in, but from what I know and find out, it doesn't even matter what business you're in. When you do have more business activities, when you have more staff, you're always going to be under that squeeze of needing more space. I mean, in Brampton, by the end of it, we were crawling over each other in terms of space. We had stuff everywhere, and so we really needed a larger space. And then with the larger space, once you get into that new space, suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough samples, we don't have enough printers to fill up a showroom, and our showroom looks like there's only 3 printers in it, even though there's a lot more. So being able to design your way up and grow with that space is always going to be a challenge. But I would say, be conservative with how much space you need, but at the same time, if space becomes a limiting factor, it's time to think about that a couple years in advance, because it takes a couple years to transition office locations. And then we really wanted to get a Vancouver location because we were 3 hours behind them in terms of time zones. So we could have closed 3 hours by the time someone in Vancouver wanted to call for support, and we wanted to support our West Coast customers as well. So we decided to have an office there, have our own staff there, have our own warehouse there, so that we would no longer be shipping back and forth across the country. So having Vancouver really helped us to alleviate and support our Vancouver and Alberta customers. And it's also led by a fantastic team over there.
Yeah. I'll talk about our changing identity. When we started, you saw the picture of our little showroom. It was showroom, office, meeting space, and everything else, basically. And at one point, the people were piling on top of one another. So we went from a very casual environment and, more casual printer. As he said, the first Ultimaker was laser cut wood. It had a very different appearance than this today. And now we have these new spaces. We have, even more expensive printers, higher end appearance to pretty much all our products, and our customers we went from, hobbyists to education, government, really big industry. So we had to kind of keep in mind who our initial selves were. We were always experts, but now we have to step it up a notch. Now we're professionals and experts. And it's constantly keeping the heart of what we do, so the experimentation side, but now experimentation, but how does it apply to the customer? We're not just play, but work and play. So as you grow, you really want to think about who you are, what are the key parts of your business, your heart, and how does that grow with you without losing it? Because you don't want to lose the heart. Your customers have found you and believe in you, whether you're environmentally friendly and sustainable, or it's I make everything at home and they're like, yes, I want to support the small business. How do you keep that as you grow? And you always want to keep that in mind.
Exactly. And customers who have been with us for a long time are very used to dealing with us already. So a lot of times they don't need to call us or anything like that. But how do you change, become more, and at the same time keep all of those customers happy? And I think Sarah did a fantastic job kind of splitting our website a little bit into a select service, which is much more service and professionalism oriented, and also keeping our web shop there, and even faster access for people who are just regularly buying consumables, and they don't necessarily need to contact us directly for that. We still made it extremely easy for them to access that portal and say, hey, I just want to buy these consumables. I know it's going to ship tomorrow and I'm going to get it. So we wanted to both please our existing customers and provide for them what they already know and love, which is quick, easy access to consumables and knowledge when they need it, but also present a new face with our service options.
Okay, great. So we'll start taking with some questions. There's one in chat from Walter, and he wants to know about the costs and some hacks to create a virtual showroom, and some techniques to help customers differentiate between the 3D printers we have.
Fantastic. Okay, so some hacks to creating a virtual showroom. Okay, first of all, if you do have a showroom, fantastic. You already have half of the solution because you no longer need to create a brand new showroom or a set. If you have a static set, that's okay too. It's going to revolve around the same. So you need a place to do it, and then you need a rolling stand of some kind. So it could be a rolling table with casters on it, or you can have kind of a podium with wheels on it, or some kind of a rolling cabinet. And that's going to be the base of your virtual showroom. You're going to want a laptop. You're going to want a camera mounted to it. What we do is we have a camera mounted to a swing arm that you can move and adjust. So it's easy to kind of zoom in, zoom out, and so forth. You also want a camera that has a screen that flips around so you can actually see yourself and make sure you're in the frame when you're presenting. It also gives you a place to focus as well, so you're always kind of talking to the camera and not looking at your laptop, which does happen, but it's always a better presentation when you're kind of looking at the camera, and it certainly helps when there's a screen on there as well. And then as an added bonus, if lighting is not the most best thing in your showroom or in your set space, have a little bit of a light come in from off to 45 degrees angle to your left or right. That doesn't intersect with the camera, and that will light you up fairly nicely and give a little bit of dynamics in terms of how you look on camera. And then for sound, the best thing to do is to have a Bluetooth headset with a mic like what Walter and Laura have, where it can pick up your voice, but also let you hear what the customers are saying. If you have a Bluetooth one, it's wireless. You can actually step far away from the podium if you need to, and sometimes that works really well if you want to show a couple different printers. So that's those are some hacks in creating your virtual showroom. And then you don't have to spend a ton of money. You can actually rejig a lot of this together and use a webcam as well. It's all interchangeable from that respect. You don't need to spend a lot of money on this.
Before we talk about 3D printers, we got another question about setting up a studio with an ideal setup for webinars.
Okay.
So talk about this space.
Sure, yeah. So this is actually our studio space. We have, since COVID, we've transitioned our showrooms and our offices to provide several different functions. We've gone virtual on almost everything. So what we have right now is we have a set in the showroom where we do YouTube videos. We have a studio space here for presentations and webinars and things like that. And then we also have a soundproof or sound treated small room where we do trainings as well. That's much more plain, so that's we can focus on the printer itself. In this instance, we have basically a camera in front of us that's a little bit of a wider angle. We just have some paper backdrop in the back of us to create color. We had a custom table made for this because I really wanted it, and it was kind of an idea that I had. So we have a table that lights up. You don't have to have this, but some space to put what you're showing, your computer, and so forth. The most important thing really is lighting and sound on webinars. People need to hear you well. So that means, having a mic as close to your face as possible. So whether you use a boom mic from your headset, or right now we're actually using lav mics, if you can see here. And also you can use different types of shotgun mics, or have a mic right here as well, would pick up your voice very well. And sound is 50% of a video, as many people will say. And then the visuals, even if it's blurry, it's okay as long as someone can hear you extremely clearly.
Yeah.
And then in terms of lighting, same suggestions for when you had the virtual showroom. Kind of have a light on 45 degrees is the simplest setup. And then you can get into advanced techniques of having backlight and things like that. Then your studio gets a bit more complicated.
If you want to get really basic, then I would say film during the day, have window light coming in, and just make sure that you don't have blinds making lines across your face.
Yeah.
Try to get as much ambient light as possible.
Yeah, and then bring the camera higher so it's at eye level, so you're not always looking down at your laptop. And that's another advice that I would provide.
And then we'll go back to Walter's second part of his question, which is, what are some techniques to help customers differentiate between the different 3D printers you have?
Okay, so there's some techniques. Okay, if you're just starting, it might be a little bit overwhelming because number one, there's a ton of brands out there. And the market has matured a lot, so it's hard to tell what brands are new and what brands are tried, tested, and true. I would say it's very easy. Probably, if you're not shy, just talk to someone first. Talk to someone who knows 3D printing. Join some groups and so forth. Figure out kind of where your budget sits, or have someone guide you through the process. There's no better way than for someone to kind of pick up the phone and say, hey, what are you looking to do? Here's what I suggest, and blah, 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 blah. So I think, that's really the first step that I would do, especially for a topic that I don't know. Like if I had some questions about cars, I'd probably want to call someone and ask some questions first. The other thing that people do most often now is research for themselves. And that means searching for it on Google, searching for it on YouTube, and finding content that's relevant to what you're doing. You'd be surprised now if you have a particular application for 3D printing. If you type that into Google, you'll probably find some user case doing the same thing. Or you might find a video that we did experimenting on something like that.
So I'm just going to steal the concept from you and say, so that really is part of our strategy of creating all this content and getting it on YouTube and getting it on our website, is so people who are doing the research or who have that question of what printer is right for me can find that information. So we have built out product pages for the more technical, but our biggest change for our website was creating Shop 3D Select, which is our non-store based web site. So when you come to the site now, before it used to be just a store, and now it's more of a educational website that leads to a store. So we have landing pages for all of our major products, and it goes through what's the key points, what do you need to know about the printer, and we have it organized by either application. So if you're an engineer, or an automotive manufacturer, there's
different verticals that suit exactly what you're looking for.
With tons of support.
Exactly. Most engineers are looking for